Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for the afternoon session of day 25 of the Derek Chauvin trial. We just wanted to start a fresh stream as we get rolling into this thing. We are expecting them to come back any moment now, momentarily. We've been in the middle of hearing from the defense witness, David Fowler. And if you want to take a look at our website, unicornriot.ninja, on the Trial of Derek Chauvin page, under the April 14th section, we have a bunch of stuff about Fowler. If I can scroll. Yeah, so the links are right in there on the April 14th section if you want to learn about Fowler's controversial history being involved with cases in Maryland, where he was the chief medical examiner in that state. Take a look there. The Intercept and WTOP report about the death of Anton Black in custody in 2018, and the lawsuit there the ACLU was involved with in Maryland. And I also found another story. Tyrone West died in police custody under questionable circumstances in 2013, and in an oddly similar situation, Fowler ruled that West died due to a heart condition known as cardiac arrhythmia in 2013. That was Tyrone West. So you can learn more about the Anton Black, Tyrone West, and the role that Fowler's had as the medical examiner in Maryland in these cases. So we've got links to more about the Anton Black story on our website, unicornriot.ninja. Again, we do really count on everyone's support to just help distribute our work, to get the word out, tell your friends. That distribution does matter a great deal. So we appreciate your support. We're a small group, and we're going to keep trying our best to keep bringing this to you. So I'm going to hold it here. We'll wait for court to come back. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate your support. Please be respectful in the chats. We are live now on YouTube, on Twitter Live, and on Facebook Live. So thank you all for everyone. Please subscribe, set notifications to get our work, and we'll appreciate it. This is, again, the live feed right now. It is almost 1:30 Central Time as we're waiting for day 25 to come back. Thank you all for joining us. Hot mic, sorry. Thanks for joining us.
Dr. Schillendorf.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Ron.
All right, Your Honor, counsel, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Fowler, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'd like to say I have a few questions for you, but I have more than a few this afternoon. Let me just start with some basic questions, just by way of sort of background of yourself as an expert witness. Do you agree that as an expert witness, you should be objective, fair, and impartial as best you can?
Yes, I would agree that that's appropriate as best you can.
Do you agree that in the background research you do to testify, that you should be thorough?
Yes.
Meaning you should do your homework before you arrive at your opinions. Fair enough?
Yes.
I asked that question in part because you asked a question about Mr. Chauvin's weight, and you understand that the relevance of Mr. Chauvin's weight to this case is how much weight he was putting onto the body of George Floyd beneath him. You understand that, don't you?
Yes.
You told the jury that Mr. Chauvin's weight was 140 pounds, didn't you?
That's the information that I was provided, yes.
Where did you get this information provided?
From counsel.
In the information that was provided to you, were you not told that Mr. Chauvin was wearing equipment?
That was not considered as part of the process. I would agree with you, Counselor.
Right. So, you know he is wearing equipment, though. He's a police officer at the time, right?
Absolutely.
And so you didn't factor in the weight of his equipment that was also on the body of Mr. Floyd. Is that true?
That is true.
Now, you agree that as an expert witness, you shouldn't jump to conclusions. That is, you should reach fair conclusions based upon a careful, considered analysis.
That is correct, yes.
Do you agree that you shouldn't come at this in a way that's biased? You agree with that, don't you?
Absolutely agree with that, yes.
You shouldn't cherry pick facts.
No.
You shouldn't try to confuse the jury.
Correct.
Now, there's a reason I ask about that, too. Because you spent quite a bit of time talking about carbon monoxide. You remember that discussion, don't you?
I do indeed.
Now, just going right to the punchline on carbon monoxide that you talked about at some length, you haven't seen any data or test results that showed Mr. Floyd had a single injury from carbon monoxide. Is that true?
That is correct, because it was never sent to the laboratory for that test.
I asked you whether it was true, sir. Yes or no?
It is true.
Now, as you were talking about carbon monoxide, you were referring to the squad car that Mr. Floyd was near, weren't you?
Yes.
Have you ever laid eyes, I don't mean pictures, physically, on the squad car that you were referring to?
I have not.
Do you know whether it has a single exhaust or a double exhaust?
The information that I was provided, it has a double exhaust with twin exhaust pipes on each side, so it has 4 exhausts.
Right. Now, did you know the make and the model of the car?
It is a Ford Explorer Interceptor.
Is it a hybrid?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, did you see any air monitoring data that actually would give you any information as to what amount of carbon monoxide, if any, would have been in Mr. Floyd's breathing zone?
No, because it was not tested.
It was a yes or no question. You haven't seen any, have you?
I have not seen any data.
And you didn't go yourself to try to do anything akin to air monitoring, air sampling to simulate what Mr. Floyd might have been exposed to in proximity of a similar vehicle. You didn't do that, did you?
So Jerry Blackwell is the state's attorney, swinging hard on the cross-examination, already pointing out that this expert witness did not calculate the gear in terms of the weight. That has already happened, and it's continuing.
Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you agree with me that there was no finding of carbon monoxide poisoning from Dr. Baker's autopsy review?
I do.
You mentioned an EPA standard of 9 parts per million on an 8-hour basis as the exposure limit for carbon monoxide. Remember that discussion?
Yes.
And you mentioned 35 parts per million, what I call a peak exposure. That is an exposure for a 1-hour time period.
That is correct, yes.
Now, you are not now, nor have you ever been an industrial hygienist, true?
Absolutely correct. I have not been.
Now, the fact that the EPA provides a standard of 9 parts per million on an 8-hour basis, that's a time-weighted average, isn't it?
Yes, that is your maximum exposure over that period, and you're allowed to do that once in 1 year.
So it's a time-weighted average over 8 hours. Are you able to tell this jury whether or not Mr. Floyd, at the time that he was being subdued on May 25th, was being exposed to carbon monoxide above the limit or level that was set by the EPA of 9 parts per million?
No, no testing was done.
For that matter, cutting even more to the chase, how do you know the car was even on?
It was a question I specifically asked, and then I made an observation of water dripping from what appears to be a tailpipe.
So if I ask you directly, do you know if in fact the car was on or not? You didn't see any information or data from anybody who says I either turned the car on or I'm the one who turned it off. You didn't see either one, did you?
Correct.
And you just simply assumed by seeing something dripping from a tailpipe that the car had to have been on.
It's not an assumption, it's an evaluation which in my mind indicates that the vehicle was running.
You mentioned carbon monoxide studies. These are outside studies that you're referring to. Remember those outdoor studies?
They are referring to outdoor air, yes.
You referenced a total of 2 studies, true?
The carbon monoxide, which studies are you referring to?
I'm referring to the San Antonio study. I'm sorry, 3. Well, San Antonio study, the DeMaio, and then the Polis study.
So the DeMaio and San Antonio are one in the same.
Okay.
Dr. DeMaio was the chief medical examiner at the San Antonio chief medical examiner's office when he wrote that article.
So then if we have the San Antonio study and then DeMaio are one study, that one study involved 3 people, didn't it?
Correct.
And then we have the study you told us about, the Polish study, that involved 1 person, right?
Correct.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how long were the subjects in those studies exposed to carbon monoxide? Do you know?
It's unknown.
Now, I had another issue that I wanted to raise, again, under this heading of the jury not being confused. And this relates to the white substance that you were referring to in the mouth of Mr. Floyd. Remember that discussion?
Yes.
And so it started with the white substance in his mouth, and I think it ended with talking about a partially digested pill in a car. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to show you and discuss with you a couple of exhibits. Now, you told us that you looked at surveillance video from stores in discussing the materials that you reviewed. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
And the store at issue here is Cup Foods.
That was one of them, yes.
So you recall looking at the surveillance video from Cup Foods?
Yes.
I want to review part of that video with you, if I could. And if we pull up Exhibit 29, I think it's in evidence. Just one moment, John. So I'm showing you an excerpt from Exhibit 29 and inside Cup Foods. And I want us together to observe George Floyd. Yeah, 7:41 and then 42. You can go ahead and play it, Brad. And could you zoom in on Mr. Altiste on George Floyd and were you able to see that portion of the clip, Dr. Fowler?
Yes,
Were you able to see that George Floyd was chewing?
Overruled if you have an opinion.
I saw his mouth open and close briefly. He could have been chewing. I don't know.
Let's play it again, because I would like for you to know.
Sustained.
It was fast, Your Honor. If I could.
Do you need to see it again to render your opinion?
From what I saw, Your Honor, it was too brief to...
See if that changes your opinion.
All right, now I want to show you a couple of stills. Your Honor, I made a couple of stills from this segment of the footage that I marked separately as Exhibits 812 and 813, and I would move their admission.
Any objection? 812 and 813 are received.
So if you put up 812, Brad, and And could you zoom in again on George Floyd? Now, Dr. Fowler, can you see a white substance in George Floyd's mouth there?
I can.
And doesn't it look remarkably similar to the white substance that you were talking about when you were discussing the photograph with the gun pointed at him in the car when he was first approached by the police?
Yes, it looks very similar.
Is it your understanding that when Mr. Floyd left Cup Foods, he went out across the street to sit in the vehicle?
Yes.
And next he was then approached by the police sitting in the vehicle, right?
I believe he was first approached by the clerks from the store, and then he was approached by the police subsequently.
So would it be fair to say, in order to say that the white substance in Mr. Floyd's mouth was a pill, in light of what you've seen, that would be jumping to a conclusion, wouldn't it?
Specifically, when I testified, I said there was a white object in his mouth. That's all I could discern from that, and I remember saying that under direct.
So you were not then either telling or suggesting to the jury that the white substance was a pill, are you?
I never said it was a pill. I carefully said that I could see a white structure in his mouth.
Dr. Fowler, if you just answer
And I did not want to classify it, and I didn't classify
if you just answer my question.
Yes.
You're not either telling or suggesting to the jury that the white substance was a pill, are you?
No, I never did.
One other thing, under the heading of not wanting to confuse the jury. You had a discussion with Mr. Nelson about a scientist, Dr. Ray, R-E-A-Y, and the statement you made, and you can correct me so I say it accurately, but it was to the effect that he had been critical of prone positioning and his relationship to asphyxia, but that he had later retracted that opinion. Remember discussing that?
Yes.
Now, the statement that Dr. Ray had retracted his concerns about the dangers and hazards of the prone position with respect to asphyxia, that statement was in fact never withdrawn by Dr. Ray. Isn't that the real truth?
He withdrew it and said that it was more of a risk to individuals who were obese, is my recollection of the course of events in Dr. Ray's history.
Your Honor, I want to show Exhibit 818 simply for identification purposes to discuss with the witness. So let me show you first. This is an affidavit from Dr. Ray. And if you look on the second page, if you have that, Mr. Eltis, do you see where he has signed it here and dated it? Donald Ray.
Yes.
That's the person you're referring to, right?
Yes, Dr. Donald Ray.
Let's go back to the first page and see if he retracted this. So let's see the first paragraph, just so we see what this is about. Statement written by Donald Ray and sent to Charlie Miller in June of 1998. In the November issue of the Annals of Emergency Medicine, Chan et al. Published a paper entitled Restraint Position and Positional Asphyxia. This is one of the studies that you were referencing earlier today, isn't it?
Yes.
If we go down, Brett, 2 paragraphs to the I readily acknowledge. Here, Dr. Ray is saying, I readily acknowledge the value of these studies, that is Chan studies, in the San Diego case of Price versus San Diego, which had many other features besides hog tying in the restraint maneuvers used to control the victims. This has since been presented in law enforcement publications as my retraction of positional asphyxia as a cause of death, with particular reference to hog tying. And let's look at the next paragraph. Here's the punchline, Dr. Fowler. Such is not the case. I still maintain that there are risks and hazards. I'm reading what it says, Your Honor.
Well, the question, what's the question?
The question is simply exploring what it is that Dr. Ray, in fact, said on the issue of whether he retracted this statement.
A minute to make sure there's a question after each portion as to whether it's true or not.
All right.
Mr. Blackwell, would you join us on the sidebar?
Yes, Your Honor.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Dan at Unicorn Riot. Thanks for tuning in. So this has been the state cross-examination of David Fowler, and what we saw earlier with Dr. Tobin last Thursday as a respiratory scientist was related science, related to all this.
So if you could re-ask the question, just so we're clear.
Yeah, sorry, Your Honor. So, Dr. Fowler, I'd like to explore with you Dr. Ray's response on the question of whether he retracted his statements of concerns about positional asphyxia as relates to the prone position. Did Dr. Ray say, as you see here, that such is not the case?
Yes, I do.
And do you see where he says, I still maintain that there are risks and hazards to restraint maneuvers, including hog tying, and each case must be evaluated to assess the presence or absence of respiratory restriction in light of the method of restraint? Do you see that?
Yes, that's what's written in this affidavit.
And then one more point here he makes. If we can see just 2 paragraphs down, the point. He says here, do you see this? The point is that street deaths are much different than controlled investigations. Do you see that?
Yes.
And so, Dr. Fowler, does having seen this affidavit from Dr. Ray change your opinion as to whether he had retracted his opinion of concerns about the prone position as relates to positional asphyxia?
So it appears that he hasn't completely withdrawn his position, but he does go into some additional description, which is the paragraph above, which you didn't highlight.
Dr. Fowler, you answered my question. And if there are other things that Mr. Nelson would like to bring out, he'll have an opportunity to. Thank you, Brian. Now let's talk for just a moment about your areas of expertise. We know that you are a forensic pathologist, sir, but you're not a toxicologist, or you don't have a degree in toxicology.
That is correct. I'm not a toxicologist.
And to be clear for the jury, as a forensic pathologist, you don't treat patients.
Correct.
We have heard from a pulmonologist who's also a respiratory physiologist. You're not a pulmonologist or a respiratory physiologist. True?
That is true.
So you never measured anybody's respiration, that is their breathing, as a part of your work as a forensic pathologist?
No, I have not.
You're not a cardiologist, obviously.
No.
Just by way of just a couple of background things, you told us a good bit about your background, but what year was it that you arrived in the United States?
I believe it was 1991.
And in what year did you retire?
December 31st, 2019.
You told us quite a good bit about the forensic panel, and you're employed as a consultant by the forensic panel. Is that a fair description?
Yes.
Now, to be clear for the jurors so they're not confused, the forensic panel is not a non-profit, is it?
No, it's not a non-profit. At least to the best of my ability, I don't know what they're classified as, frankly. I do not know.
So, through the forensic panel, you earn a livelihood. So it's not volunteer time for you, is it?
No, I get compensated by the hour.
And the forensic panel then is not a governmental body.
Correct. It's an independent organization.
It's a business.
It's a medical/forensic science practice, which medical practices are businesses, yes.
It's a business.
Yeah.
So I want to talk with you a bit about asphyxial deaths. It's been what we've been referring to as deaths caused by low oxygen. Do you agree, Dr. Fowler, that positional asphyxia is placing a person into a position that restricts their ability to ventilate their lungs, or a position where the head may be in such a position that you can't keep the airways open?
That is correct, yes.
And then at the end of the day, in positional asphyxia, what gets restricted is a person's ability to oxygenate their blood because of the position they're in, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Doctor, there are two component methods of ventilating the lungs. One is to move your ribs, and the other is to be able to move your diaphragm. Is that true?
That is true, yes.
But the key thing for breathing is that you'll be able to expand your chest. If you can't expand your chest, you can't breathe.
Correct. You need to expand the capacity of the chest cavity so that the lungs draw air in as part of the process.
You know, I'd like to focus with you for a moment on the first roughly 5 minutes that Mr. Floyd was on the ground as part of the subdual and the restraint under Mr. Chauvin. Did you analyze where Mr. Chauvin's knees were relative to the positioning of Mr. Floyd's body in that first 5 minutes?
I did review the positioning, yes.
Would you agree with me that for over half of that time period, Mr. Chauvin's left knee was on the neck, and his right knee is at times on the back, and at other times on his left arm, or pushed in against his left side?
That is correct. Those are all the positions that I observed the knee in, the right knee, during that period of time.
And so Mr. Floyd then is sandwiched in a way between Mr. Chauvin on top and the asphalt pavement beneath it, right?
Yes, if you...
It's a yes or no question.
Yes.
I want to ask you a question about putting pressure on someone's neck. That is, if you're on a person's back and you are applying pressure to the neck. Doctor, do you agree that if pressure is applied to somebody's neck in the prone position and the person is squeezed until they become responsive, and if that pressure is maintained for a minimum of 4 minutes, that can cause irreversible brain damage because the brain may be starved of oxygen? Is that true?
Once cessation of oxygen to the brain starts...
Dr. Fowler, my question was, is it true?
Would you please restate the question?
Yes, sir. If you apply pressure to someone's neck and squeeze until the person becomes unresponsive, and you maintain that pressure for at least 4 minutes, you will cause irreversible brain damage because you will have starved the brain of oxygen. Is that true?
Correct. It takes 4 minutes of no supply of oxygen to the brain to cause irreversible brain damage.
Now, if somebody dies as a result of the consequences of insufficient oxygen or low oxygen. We know that when that person dies, they're going to die of cardiopulmonary arrest because everybody dies of cardiopulmonary arrest. Fair enough?
Yes.
And if a person dies as a result of low oxygen, that person's also going to die ultimately of a fatal arrhythmia, right?
Correct. Every one of us in this room will have a fatal arrhythmia at some point.
Right, because that's kind of how you go.
Yes.
So I want to talk about the role of sort of physical activity, struggle, if you will, on the oxygen stores or reserves when somebody may be in the prone position. Do you agree that when somebody is involved in a pretty vigorous physical confrontation, they would certainly have what's referred to as an oxygen deficit?
Yes. Any kind of exertion, you build up a degree of lactic acid and other metabolites that need to be removed from the body. And the term oxygen debt is used more in the lay environment, but yes, you have some makeup to do.
And because you're using up your oxygen reserves then?
Somewhat, but it's also more generation of the metabolic byproducts from the actual activity as well.
Well, would you agree that somebody with an oxygen deficit who is involved in a vigorous physical confrontation would be more susceptible to positional asphyxia than would otherwise be the case? Do you agree with that?
Yes. It would be more difficult for them to regain their to get rid of the metabolic byproducts of the activities that occurred before.
And would you agree then that a person with an oxygen deficit or debt is more prone to any kind of asphyxia than a person completely at rest? Do you agree with that?
Yes, a fully oxygenated person at rest would certainly be at no risk of, or not no, but a substantially lower level of risk of an arrhythmia compared to somebody who has been exercised hard.
Dr. Fowler, are you familiar with a text known as Spitz and Fisher?
Yes.
Pretty big. This is a standard text for medical examiners, isn't it?
It's certainly one of the recommended books that fellows in forensic pathology will review as part of their training, yes.
And it's one you've in the past referred to as a reliable text.
Yes.
It is handed out to all forensic pathologists in training as just a standard text.
Again, it's recommended that they use that as one of their references.
And you aware that this text on medical legal investigation of death, it contains sections on deaths by asphyxia, doesn't it?
Yes.
And do you agree that for death by positional asphyxia, that is death caused by insufficient oxygen, that the causes for that may be what's referred to as endless?
Yes. Hence the complexity of these particular cases.
So you spoke with Mr. Nelson about the fact that on autopsy, when somebody dies of asphyxia or insufficient oxygen, you might see injuries to the ribs or to the vertebrae that indicate the type of restraint, or at least how the asphyxia came about. You might see that, right?
Yes.
You might see what we refer to as traumatic manifestations, things like bruises, evidence of injuries on autopsy. You might see those, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you agree, Dr. Fowler, that the majority of cases where somebody dies of asphyxia are very subtle, and in fact, no traumatic manifestations are visible at all?
That is correct, depending on the circumstances.
And what I mean by that is that there isn't necessarily any evidence, any physical evidence on autopsy of what it is that caused the low oxygen in the majority of cases, right?
In a substantial number of the cases, I'm not sure it's absolutely the majority.
Brett, could you skip to page 828? Dr. Fowler, can you see here from this is from Spitz and Fisher. For identification purposes, Your Honor, it's Exhibit 814 for the record. Am I reading here correctly that, however, the majority of cases are subtle, in fact, often with no traumatic manifestations at all? I read that accurately?
Yes, you did.
Thank you, Brett. Are you familiar with a publication called Knight's Forensic Pathology?
By Sir Bernard Knight, yes.
And that's another reliable authority for forensic pathologists, isn't it?
Correct.
Did you know that that Knight's Forensic Pathology also has a chapter on suffocation and asphyxia?
Yes.
That doesn't surprise you, does it?
Doesn't surprise me, and I've seen it.
And that is Exhibit 815, just for identification purposes. And I want to show you what's said at page 354. This is taken from Knight's. Knight's, it says, there are no truly distinctive autopsy signs of pure hypoxia, and most of the alleged criteria are caused by factors other than a lack of oxygen. Did I read that accurately? Dr. Fowler?
Yeah, I'm just reading it and trying to process it. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, please. Take your time.
Yes, that's what it says.
Now, you had some discussions with Mr. Nelson about strangulation. You do understand in this case that no one is contending that Mr. Floyd was manually strangled by anyone. You understand that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely correct. There was no evidence of manual strangulation, and no discussion of manual strangulation.
Dr. Fowler, do you agree that with respect to positional asphyxia, the diagnosis of positional asphyxia is one that is made by investigation, because you won't find an autopsy finding that necessarily, specifically tells you why the person is asphyxiated?
Correct. The scene information becomes very important.
Now, you spent quite a bit of time talking about the prone position studies, and I referenced them just a few minutes ago by Chan and others. Let me ask you a couple of other questions just about those studies and to try to correlate them to this case. Is it true, Dr. Fowler, that none of the prone restraint studies that you referred to actually studied subjects who had someone's knee on their neck in the prone position? Is that true?
That is true.
None of the studies went for as long as 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Is that true?
That is true.
So do you agree, Dr. Fowler, that if the weight of several officers or a police officer is put on the actual torso and abdominal areas of a person in police custody, that can cause compressional or positional asphyxia? Do you agree with that?
If it exceeds the limits of 225 pounds, as found by multiple studies, then yes, your argument is correct.
Could I show Brad Exhibit 808 for identification purposes? Sorry, Judge. Let me ask you first. You did give a deposition in a case that is called Curtis versus Prince George's County a few years back. You remember giving a deposition in a case called Curtis?
Yes.
And you've been involved in any number of depositions over your career as a forensic pathologist, haven't you, sir?
Yes, sir.
But in every one of them, you took an oath that you would tell the truth at the depositions, right?
Yes.
So with that said, let's look at your question and answer from this deposition. Question: what would it take a police officer to do in that situation to cause compressional or positional asphyxia? Well, the compressional specifically would require the weight of several officers on the actual torso and abdominal area, something that is documented in medical literature as burking, which is a method of killing people that was made popular back in England in the Middle Ages when they were looking for bodies to teach medical students anatomy. Did I read that accurately?
Yes.
Can we agree that when you gave the answer to this question, you did not say anything about in excess of 200 pounds or 220 pounds? Is that true?
All I said would take the weight of several officers on the torso and abdominal area. That's exactly what I said there.
Sir, I just asked you if you made any reference to having a weight that exceeds either 200 or 220 pounds. Did you make any such reference, yes or no?
I didn't give a specific weight. I just said several officers.
So we know here, in this case, when Mr. Chauvin was on Mr. Floyd's back and neck, from time to time he was pressing down forcefully with his knee also on the left arm. You saw the knee on the left arm from time to time, didn't you, sir?
Yes, I did.
I want to ask you in that framework about another quote from Spitz and Fisher, Exhibit 814 for identification purposes on page 833. I'm sorry, sir. 833. Contrary to the belief of some, it is our opinion that pinning down the shoulders or forcefully pressing down the arms is equivalent to loading the back. A struggling, agitated individual breathes faster, has a faster heartbeat, elevated blood pressure, and heightened metabolism. Such an individual requires more air and more oxygen. Immobilization of the chest, even if only partially reducing the ability to maintain vital functions, culminates in cardiac arrhythmia. Do you agree with the statement from Spitz and Fisher? Sure.
No, specifically, I do not. They stated it is their opinion, and again, this is a medical opinion expressed by those particular authors. It's not a scientific fact.
Thank you, Brent. Dr. Fowler, do you agree that with Mr. Floyd in a prone, stomach down position, with Mr. Chauvin applying some pressure to the neck and pressure to the torso in a downward position, that these forces would be symbiotic? They would actually add together. Is that true?
Yes, I agree. In the paper by Kroll, as I quoted earlier on, the single knee.
Dr. Fowler, I just asked you if it was true.
Yes. Dr. Kroll confirmed that.
And all those things together would make somebody more likely than if those factors weren't present. It would make it more likely for them to succumb to asphyxia, correct?
If the weight is sufficient, yes.
You told us, Dr. Fowler, that you had been able to catch some of the testimony at the trial from some of the other medical persons who testified. You didn't see all of it, but you've seen some of it.
That is correct, sir, yes.
Are you then aware that a number of medical experts and others have testified that Mr. Floyd died primarily to the effects of low oxygen that arose out of Mr. Chauvin's subdual restraint and neck compression? Are you aware that a number of persons have testified about that?
Yes, I am.
I'd like to talk with you about what specifically you have done to actually assess what Mr. Floyd's actual oxygen reserves would have been during the subdual restraint and compression on May 25th of 2020 while he was underneath the body of Mr. Chauvin. You wrote a report containing your opinions in this case, and it is dated on February 22nd of 2021, right?
Yes.
I will represent to you and assume for purposes of my questions that in expiratory lung volumes, or EELV, is the amount of air that remains in your chest between breaths. Will you accept that as a premise for my questions?
The end respiratory lung volume?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
what you're referring to?
The EELV, yes.
Yes.
And I'll refer to that commonly as simply the body's oxygen reserves, just as a common way to refer to it. And then,
It's the air that's left in your lungs. It's not a body's oxygen reserve. Your major oxygen reserve is in the oxygen dissolved in your bloodstream.
we'll just call it the EELV then, okay?
Thank you.
Right. Do you agree that as the EELV decreases, that it takes more work to breathe?
I believe so, yes.
Incidentally, you were having a discussion, had a discussion with Mr. Nelson about the hypopharynx. You recall that discussion?
Yes.
Now, the report that you prepared in this case was 31 pages or thereabouts. Fair enough?
Yes.
Can we agree that the word hypopharynx doesn't appear in your report in any of the 31 pages expressing your opinions, does it?
That is correct.
Now, you had made some comments earlier that you couldn't find anything in the literature about whether the hypopharynx may be impeded by restraints on the back. Do you recall that discussion?
Yes.
And I take it you went to look at forensic pathology studies in that regard, didn't you?
I searched the general literature and forensic pathology sources, yes.
Did you look actually in physiology journals, sir?
That I would consider to be part of the general medical literature.
So yes, you did look in physiology journals.
I searched broadly for it. I don't know whether it's... I did not specifically focus on look in physiology journals only.
Well, I don't want to confuse the jury now. Do you...
No.
Do you... I'm sorry, Judge.
Go to sidebar, please.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We have a quick update. There was a testifier named Mr. Broad last week, and not last week, earlier this week. And there's a statement from Santa Rosa. Oh, I'll give it on the break. Sorry, guys.
I'm sorry, you can restate the question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Fowler, I was simply trying to get a clear answer, if you can give us one. Do you have a specific recollection of actually looking at physiology journals on the question of the relationship between the hypopharynx and the ability to breathe?
I specifically did a PubMed search, which includes human physiology journals, and nothing came up on my search. So therefore I did not read any physiology journals on this because nothing came up in the search.
So, Dr. Fowler, did you calculate quantitatively and include in your report what Mr. Floyd's EELV was while he was sitting on the sidewalk before the subdual and restraint began on the ground?
No, I don't believe I did.
Did you calculate and record the amount of air he took in with each breath at any point in time, either before or during the subdual and restraint on the ground?
No.
Did you do any quantitative assessment in your report for the time while he was sitting on the sidewalk by the Dragon Walk, or whether his breathing, his EELV, was either normal or whether it was abnormal?
No, I did not.
Incidentally, if his EELV was 89, that is 89 millimeters of mercury, would you agree that that would have been normal then, before the time of his subdual and restraint on the ground?
I typically do not do pulmonary medicine, so the exact ranges of human beings are not something that I classically keep in my head, so I don't know that number, Councillor.
When Mr. Floyd then was laid prone on the street, when he's face down, did you do any calculations of what any reduction may have been in his EELV due to him being placed in a prone position?
No.
When Mr. Chauvin had his knees on Mr. Floyd's back, left arm and left side, did you do any calculations quantitatively for how that weight on the back would have had any impact on his EELV?
No, I did not.
Would you agree with me then that as the EELV goes down, do you agree that as that goes down, it takes more work to breathe?
That is my understanding, but I'm not a pulmonary physician.
All right, so fair enough. For that, you would defer to a pulmonary physician.
For more detail, yes.
Well, let me ask you this, and you will tell me if I'm asking the wrong person, Dr. Fowler. Would you agree that pressure on the soft side of the neck also narrows the size of the upper airway, the hypopharynx?
I have not seen any literature which indicates that that happens. That was one of the specific things I searched for. Because you're correct, Councillor, it was not something that was put into the report, because it's not something that I have ever heard of. And so I then went and looked for pressure on the neck causing restriction of the hypopharynx, and my literature search was not fruitful.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler. If we might show Exhibit 941 that's already in evidence. So showing you, Dr. Fowler, what has been entered in the evidence as Exhibit 941. If we look at the left picture, we can see here, and I'll represent you this Mr. Chauvin, who's on top of Mr. Floyd. You can see here Mr. Chauvin's knee on the back part of the neck in the left photograph. Can you see that, sir?
Yes.
And then on the right picture, you can see that his knee is on the side of the neck, on the soft side. Can you see that also?
Yes, on the back of the right side of the neck.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brett. And I think you referred to Mr. Floyd's death as a sudden death event. Is that the word you used?
Yes, more sudden than prolonged.
If we focus on the first 5 minutes that Mr. Floyd is restrained on the ground, you were able to see in that 5 minutes, first saw Mr. Floyd just struggling to breathe, right? Well, I'll rephrase it, Jan. You could see in the first 5 minutes or hear that Mr. Floyd was first calling out that he can't breathe.
Correct. Mr. Floyd verbalized, "I can't breathe," multiple times.
And you then later heard him actually call out for his mother.
Yes.
And as time passed in that first 5 minutes, you could hear that his voice got thicker and quieter. You could hear that, couldn't you?
I did not perceive that, but I'm no better at listening than anybody else is, so anybody can make up their own opinion with regard to that.
But to your hearing, you didn't hear any change in Mr. Floyd's voice. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Not that I noticed.
Did you notice that during the 5 minutes that his words got further apart?
Yes, they did.
Did you notice that after roughly 4 minutes and 45 seconds that Mr. Floyd went unconscious?
Yes.
Then did you notice that sometime after 5 minutes, he was found not to have had a pulse?
Correct.
In your report, you refer to this as a sudden death event, but in your report and your findings, you don't record a time, do you, sir, for when the sudden death supposedly occurred, do you?
I don't specifically remember doing that. Correct.
So if we look at this continuum from hearing George Floyd calling out that he can't breathe to the point that it doesn't have a pulse over that 5 minute time period, is it fair to say that that is what you're referring to as a sudden death?
No.
All right. Then, all right, I asked you the question about when the sudden death occurred. Where in this spectrum, then, it's okay if you don't know the specific time, but where in this continuum did the sudden death occur from the time he is on the ground saying he can't breathe to the point in time he's found not to have a pulse? Are you able to generally characterize where the sudden death took place?
So, what you're referring to as a sudden death, and I may well have misinterpreted, I'm referring to as a sudden cardiac arrest. There's a difference between death and cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest is not absolutely irreversible and not synonymous with a person always passing away. So there's going to be a period of time between his cardiac arrest. For instance, in this particular case, the official pronouncement was done in the hospital. Frankly, he was dead long before that. But the moment of death is not something that you can easily document.
So when we are in this space where there is a space between cardiac arrest and between the actual death, are you suggesting that though Mr. Floyd may have been in cardiac arrest, there was a time when he may have been revived because he wasn't dead yet?
Immediate medical attention for a person who's gone into cardiac arrest may well reverse that process, yes.
Do you feel that Mr. Floyd should have been given immediate emergency attention to try to reverse the cardiac arrest?
As a physician, I would agree.
Are you critical of the fact that he wasn't given immediate emergency care when he went into cardiac arrest?
Yeah, as a physician, I would agree.
When you were observing the footage of Mr. Floyd after he's gone unconscious, there's a point in time where you see his legs raise up. Do you recall seeing his legs raised at the point after he was unconscious on the ground?
Yes.
Was that leg raising, was that consistent with what's known as an anoxic seizure?
That is what we would typically call it, yes.
And an anoxic seizure typically represents that there has been some damage to the brainstem due to insufficient oxygen. True?
It's anoxic, or in some cases we would call it hypoxic seizure, and it's not damage to the brainstem. It means that the part of the brain that governs our actual muscular movement, which is the higher portion of the brain, is not functioning properly. So typically people with seizure disorders who have seizure activity, it's from the motor cortex and not from down at the brainstem. If you've damaged the brainstem at that particular stage, the person is effectively going to be deceased.
So, but it's fair to say when we see an anoxic seizure, at the very least, we know that the brain is suffering from insufficient oxygen.
Yes.
Do you agree that low oxygen in the body, insufficient oxygen, it can cause brain injury, can't it?
Absolutely.
And it can also result in PEA, pulseless electrical activity. True?
True.
Now, Mr. Floyd had a PEA, a pulseless electrical activity arrhythmia, when his body was taken away from the scene on May 25th, 2020, didn't he?
Correct.
Is it true, Dr. Fowler, that the most common cause of a PEA is low oxygen, insufficient oxygen?
To the brain?
Yes, sir.
Yes, which can also be caused by a cardiac standstill. So no oxygen to the brain from either mechanism will cause PEA.
I had a number of questions. I'm kind of thinking through them. I'll just ask you this. I had a number of questions that have to do with whether you did any sort of quantitative measurements about Mr. Floyd's oxygen levels, his EELV, at different points in time, including at what point in time do you think his oxygen stores were completely depleted? I take it, Dr. Fowler, if I have any questions about quantitative measurements about Mr. Floyd's EELV, those would not have been measurements that you would have undertaken for any reason, right?
Correct.
And to the extent we are looking for such measurements, better to ask either a pulmonologist, a respiratory physiologist, but not necessarily, well, not Dr. Fowler as a forensic pathologist. Fair enough?
Fair enough. Forensic pathologists do not typically look at living people who are breathing.
By the same token, if I had a series of questions about measurements of the carbon dioxide levels in Mr. Floyd's body after he ceased to breathe, between the time that he ceased to breathe and before the time he was given oxygen, when he was picked up and given medical care and taken to Hennepin County Medical Center. You didn't do any quantitative analysis, did you, as to the carbon dioxide levels in Mr. Floyd's body in between the time he ceased to breathe and then the time he would receive assisted oxygen?
No, not specific quantitative analysis, no.
Now, you had quite a discussion about the paraganglioma. Remember that discussion?
Yes.
Do you know we had a witness who testified who refers to it as an incidentaloma? You ever heard that expression before?
Yes.
Now, you talked about the paraganglioma potentially being an issue if it were secreting adrenaline, right?
Correct.
90% of paragangliomas do not secrete adrenaline. Is that right? Is that right?
I think that's probably correct. I don't have that number in my head, but I have no reason to disbelieve that.
Now, you're not telling the jury, are you, sir, that Mr. Floyd died from a paraganglioma, are you?
No.
And although Dr. Baker did identify the paraganglioma on autopsy, he didn't perform any test to determine whether it was a secreting tumor, that is, secreting adrenaline, did he?
Correct. The only way to test those particular tumors is there's two methods to test. One is to do a blood test, and if the paraganglionoma is one which is constantly secreting, you pick it up on a blood test. For those paragangliomas that tend to be cyclical, if you do a blood test and you happen to pick it up at the bottom of a cycle, it won't show. And so in some cases, the first test is to do a blood test. If it's positive, you've got your answer. If that blood test is negative, you then go on to do a 24-hour urine catecholamine screen, which will pick up the surges and the dips. And that is then, the second test that would be done in these cases. Neither of them were done.
Doctor, just for clarification, is it pronounced paraganglioma or paraganglionoma?
I often add in the extra vowel, so it's a paraganglioma. Paraganglioma, sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler. Now, is it true that in all the world literature, there have only been 6 reported cases of people who have died from a sudden heart event from adrenaline release from a paraganglioma? Is that true?
That's what the literature says, because in many cases it may go completely unrecognized.
I just asked if it was true, Dr.
Yes, that's
Fowler.
what's in the literature.
Now, one of the signature hallmarks for a paraganglioma is a headache, right?
If it is one that does secretion at surge and then dip and surge. So if it's one that constantly secretes a small amount, it will not cause any symptoms at all.
Right. But to the extent, we know that amongst the various complaints that Mr. Floyd had about pains, he never did complain about a headache, did he?
I seem to remember one admission where he complained of a headache, but I'm going from memory now, and I am not sure.
And here I'm referring to on May 25th of last year. You have a recollection that Mr. Floyd complained of a headache?
I know he complained of tooth pain and a few other things, but I can't be sure that he did not complain of a headache. I do not have a clear recollection, I answer.
Right. I won't hold you to that then.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Fowler, you asked some questions about Mr. Floyd saying, "I can't breathe," before he was put on the ground during the subdual and the restraint. Do you recall that discussion?
Yes.
Were you able to see what was happening with Mr. Floyd as they were trying to get him into what's referred to as Squad 320?
Yes.
Were you aware of whether or not Mr. Floyd was experiencing being choked as he was being put into the back of Squad 320?
I did not see a limb around his neck, from my recollection. That's not something that I noticed.
Your Honor and Counsel, I have a couple of stills from Exhibit 43 that's already in. And these are numbered Exhibits 281 and 282. and I would offer those stills from Exhibit 43 already in evidence.
Any objections?
281, 282, President.
Yes. May I, Your Honor? Just
Yeah.
No.
281 and 282 are received.
thank you, Your Honor. So we could first, Brad, if we could show 282. Can you see here in 282, this area? Do you see where I've circled, Dr. Fowler?
Yes.
And do you see this arm that is around Mr. Floyd's neck?
Yes.
Do you recognize this person to be Mr. Chauvin?
It appears to be yes.
And if I could show you 281. I'm sorry, Your Honor, if you could. And here we see the top of Mr. Floyd's face. And then there's a hand here on his neck. Do you see that?
Yes.
And so you, these weren't images or scenes that you had paid special attention to before as you looked at what was going on in Squad 320? You had not seen any arms or anything around Mr. Floyd's neck?
Now, I'd seen these particular sections. I'm sorry if I misinterpreted your question. You said before he went into Squad 320. I apologize if I misinterpreted your question.
And so do you know whether when Mr. Floyd was into the back of Squad 320 and before he's pulled out, whether he complained about being choked? Did he say, "I'm getting choked"?
I believe he did, yes.
And it doesn't take a medical doctor such as yourself to know that if somebody feeling that they are getting choked, well, that would be a good reason why they would say they can't breathe.
Yes.
I wanted Dr. Fowler to see if you could just clear up a couple of things for me just in the timeline of what happened with respect to Mr. Floyd and restraint on the ground. Was the leg extension, the anoxic seizure as we've referred to it, was that before he lost consciousness or was it after he had lost consciousness?
After.
Okay. And did you make a note of when Mr. Floyd's, when was his last vocal sound? Do you remember?
Somewhere between a minute, 45 seconds and a minute before, I've got the information written down somewhere, before he went unconscious was about the last time that he actually vocalized.
If we focus in on the period of the subdual restraint and the neck compression, was there ever a time when, during the 9 minutes and 29 seconds, where you saw Mr. Floyd either sleepy, unarousable, or anything that's akin to being in a coma?
So from the period after he has those hypoxic seizures?
Or from the time he's first put on the ground, that he's pulled out of the car, Squad 320, he's subdued and restrained on the ground, Mr. Chauvin is on his neck and back. Did you ever see Mr. Floyd at any time manifest either sleepiness, a lack of awareness, that he wasn't arousable, or that sort of thing?
No, not until he lost consciousness.
And typically, doctor, when somebody passes away from a fentanyl or opioid overdose, one of the hallmarks of that is that they are very sleepy, and they will tend to be unarousable and pass away in essentially a coma, right?
Correct. If they are passing away from fentanyl overdose, that's what happens.
And Mr. Floyd was manifesting none of those outward symptoms, was he? On the ground?
Correct. It does not exclude the fact that it was still having a depressive effect on his respiratory system.
Well, before he lost consciousness, his respiration rate, I think you told us that you agree with Dr. Chauvin, was somewhere in the ballpark of 22 breaths a minute, right?
Correct.
That is normal, isn't it?
Yes.
If fentanyl was affecting his respiration, then you would expect a respiratory rate that would have been appreciably less than 22 breaths a minute if it's depressing his respiratory system, right?
Unless he should have been breathing at 30 at that particular stage because of his exertion and other stressors.
And you have no really basis or baseline to suggest that Mr. Floyd should have been breathing at 30 instead of the normal 22, right?
A person who is getting short of oxygen to their brain will often increase or usually increase their respiratory rate to more than 30.
I want to talk with you a bit about the methamphetamine. First, let me clear up, if I can, this issue of pills again in the car on May 25th. When Dr. Baker performed the autopsy, isn't it true that there weren't any pills found in Mr. Floyd's stomach?
Correct. Dr. Baker did not identify any pill, tablet, call you what you want, residue within the stomach.
And obviously any pill that's found in a car is a pill that's not in Mr. Floyd's body.
Correct. Whatever the residual amount in those tablets was not in his body.
Now, I think you made a statement with respect to the methamphetamine that it was not accompanied by a metabolite commonly seen if the meth had been in the system for an appreciable period of time.
Yes.
And I want to kind of be clear on this. Have you, since making the statement in your report, learned that in fact the metabolite of methamphetamine, that is, amphetamine as the metabolite, was present in Mr. Floyd's bloodstream from the toxicology results?
I have heard a statement to that fact. Yes.
Did you investigate the statement to determine whether or not it was true?
Yes.
And did you find that contrary to what you had written in your report, you in fact found that the metabolite of methamphetamine was present from the toxicology results for Mr. Floyd?
In very low levels, so it did not change my opinion.
Well, the methamphetamine itself was only present in very low levels. Isn't that true?
That is true.
And so if there's not a lot of meth, then there won't be a lot of the metabolite either. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Correct. And or again, substantial amount of whatever methamphetamine is there has not yet been metabolized.
So what was the level of methamphetamine that was found in his toxicology results? Do you remember?
Not offhand, no.
How about 19 nanograms per milliliter? Does that sound right?
It sounded right. I did not want to say it because I did not want to be inaccurate.
Yeah. Thank you, doctor. 19 nanograms of methamphetamine is within the range of what you would see in a patient whose doctor prescribed a therapeutic dose of methamphetamine. True?
That is true if methamphetamine is used in a therapeutic environment.
Your Honor, could I have just 1 second? So last question, Dr. Fowler, then I will sit down for now. I wanted to, again, just address the timeline from your report. And I will read it to you, and my question would be whether or not this is the timeline that you stand behind, if I may. So at 8:24:09, the last audible vocal sounds identifiable as Mr. Floyd's are heard. Soon thereafter, voices from bystanders tell police he is not breathing. Mr. Floyd exhibits extension movements of right lower extremity at 8:24:21 and movements of his right arm at 8:24:33. At 8:25:16, Mr. Floyd appears to have passed out. So, representation from your report, is that your best knowledge and information, sir?
That's the information I extracted at that time. Yes.
And you stand by that too at this time, correct?
I have no reason to disagree with that at this time now.
Yeah. Dr. Fowler, thank you.
Nelson, should we break at this time, or can you be brief? Break? All right. Break. We'll take our 20-minute break. Let's try and think about 10 after.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is Dan at Unicorn Riot. So we have more developments to keep you updated on. Apparently there is no curfew in Minneapolis tonight. That's the latest. There's no curfew in Minneapolis. We are behind the scenes. We're working on a number of different things right now. So if you give me 1 second. One of the other earlier testifiers was Mr. Barry Broad, who was a police consultant who used to be at the Santa Rosa Police Department. And there was a statement by the Santa Rosa Police Department. Mr. Broad has not been employed by the department since 2004. His comments do not reflect the values and beliefs of the Santa Rosa Police Department. So you might have seen Mr. Broad testimony earlier, which did not go it didn't seem to me, again, as a layman observer, like it went particularly well for Mr. Broad, but he got distanced by a former police department he worked at. So let's see. There's been more developments in the Dante Wright case. I will run down some more of this stuff happening today. So Dante Wright got killed by Kim Potter, a former police officer at the Brooklyn Center Police Department, on Sunday. And at this point, Potter is being charged with and is being currently held on probable cause second-degree manslaughter. And Pete Orput, the Washington County attorney, is basically preparing charging documents to start with second-degree manslaughter. And Mary Moriarty, who was the public defender in Hennepin County, has said that 48 months is the sentencing guideline, of which the last third is usually parole. It seems like the max is 10 years. So that's what's going on with the Dante Wright case. But more charges could happen. Just so people understand, Brooklyn Center is in Hennepin County. Washington County is a suburban county that's about 85% white to the east. Stillwater, Woodbury, that area. And the county attorneys agreed after what happened last year that they would be swapping those around. They would essentially be moving cases, I guess, for political reasons, and I guess so. Mike Freeman isn't managing this prosecution. That's the point. So again, I guess we apparently have no curfew in the city of Minneapolis tonight. So again, with David Fowler, we have updates on our website. We've tried to keep things updated. Our Derek Chauvin trial page, you can reach it from the front page of the website. There's that big banner up at the top, and we updated on the May 14th section. You can see links to David Fowler's role. He essentially is accused currently in a lawsuit filed in December of covering up the killing in custody of the death of Anton Black in Maryland in 2018. Fowler was the one who finalized that autopsy, and so now he's a defendant. ACLU in Maryland filed the case. It took 4 months for that autopsy to be released. WTOP in Maryland said that Governor Hogan had to forced to intervene to get that autopsy released, and sudden cardiac death was what Fowler said happened to Anton Black, and said that the bipolar disorder was a significant contributing condition with no evidence of asphyxia. And you can see here what he did today, what Fowler was doing today, was something which it seemed like Dr. Tobin was explaining what happened last week. Like, it seemed like Dr. Tobin on last Thursday was sort of saying that there's bad science involved in these asphyxia cases, and now Fowler is leaning on that bad science. That seems to basically be how these things are put together. So let's see. Then there was another case, and then so we have links to the Fowler cases. Anton Black was September 2018, and we have links on this page about that. We'll go back. All right, so we're waiting about 10 minutes. We're on this afternoon break right now. Thanks for tuning in. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube. And another case that was reported was Tyrone West, who died in police custody under questionable circumstances in 2013. And in that case as well, Dr. Fowler, who was the Maryland State Medical Examiner, said that that Tyrone West died due to a heart condition of cardiac arrhythmia after fighting with police officers, and then the state attorney Greg Bernstein declined to charge any officers involved, and the family disputed it. So, claiming that, and then a review of the autopsy by New Jersey pathologist David Mannion determined West did die from asphyxiation caused by the police. So Fowler's role repeatedly is just to sort of say, no, there's no asphyxiation, that's impossible, people just have underlying heart attacks and kill them every time. That seems to basically be what his business is. And again, Dr. Tobin, the witness for the state last Thursday, was basically giving the opposite science, breaking down on the scientific level how that the weaknesses in what Fowler came to say later here today. So this cross-examination continues. We've seen Jerry Blackwell doing a pretty efficient job of taking Fowler apart. Again, I'm definitely not a lawyer, but right from the get-go, he said, okay, you say that, Chauvin weighs 140 pounds. He's not a particularly heavy person, but Blackwell caught him right away on the point that Chauvin also had equipment on. Like, he has a bulletproof vest, which is heavy, all the gear, which weighs a bunch more pounds. And so right off the bat, he was catching Fowler on just simply the weight at the most simple level. So it's really been pretty fascinating to see like an aggressive cross-examination by Blackwell, and it could go on for quite a while longer here today. It's about 3 o'clock Central right now, so we're still waiting for them to come back. They're on that 8-minute break, so it is fascinating. It is interesting to see that for sure. So those are just some of the developments going on. And again, I'll just say, behind the scenes on Unicorn Riot, I truly appreciate, Alex is just cranking out lots of tweets, right? Because it's hard to watch the video coverage, the sounds of Mr. Floyd being killed. We've all heard it so much. It can be desensitizing. It can cause what's called vicarious trauma. And so I really appreciate that Alex, in particular, And on other days, Chris has worked on this a lot to put out those tweets. We're putting them at ur_ninja, is our Twitter account. And I think that a lot of people appreciate that because not everyone, but a lot of people want to stay posted on this case, but they don't want to be put through all the punishing elements of it, as it is punishing and it can cause vicarious trauma. So, we want to respect that, but also try to offer this up in as many ways as is useful for people. So with all of that, those are just some major points. So I'll probably just kind of go back to playing some more footage from the Monday night stream, since that was so intense. And, let's see. I think that's about everything I have for the moment right now. But again, I guess we have that there's no curfew in Minneapolis tonight. That seems to be the case. I covered the Fowler situation. Another interesting thing I'll just mention, I mentioned earlier, we had one of our members, D, has been working really hard on a bunch of different things for us, and including today and every day. And so D did a story about ESCOM and the South African energy crisis, because Fowler was trained in the apartheid era down in South Africa, and he was born in Zimbabwe, and he's from a town called Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, is where he was born. A white man from Zimbabwe and trained in South Africa. And so the colonization of South Africa by European powers, and how that led to a monolithic and somewhat mismanaged state energy company, which even from the early days of colonization of South Africa was aimed at providing cheap electricity for the mining companies for extraction, part of this, overall picture of resource extraction from Africa, and this specific power company, which is unreliable to this day. But the fact that the South African the corporation, similar to the East India Company in India, a similar corporation in South Africa, was involved in colonizing that town in Zimbabwe, and that was just sort of an interesting historical connection, which is, and that colonization process is referenced in this story. So, I just thought that was a really interesting way to kind of step back and look at the roots of power and political economy in South Africa. Just wanted to mention that. We've seen tons of chemical munitions. We're going to be looking more into chemical munitions to come, but our contributor Sam Richards did a bunch of research published last December about chemical munitions and how the Department of Natural Resources in Minnesota was used to go to Colorado to go pick up chemical munitions. They were using aircraft that are supposed to be used for forestry to pull this off. That's a thing. And Sam also gave us a report about the spy planes, the State Patrol N115SP, which has definitely been up and about lately. Again, it tends to live at the St. Paul Airport, so downtown, across from Lower Town. So that's another story that we've had about this, aviation and spying and stuff like that. So, and Sam also did the story about catching the FBI spy plane, and how you yourself, with an air traffic detector and a keen ear, listening to air traffic control data, you too can help catch FBI spy planes. So we have about 4 minutes left before coming back to court. So I will just run a little more of the live footage as we wait these last 4 minutes. Again, I'm Dan. Thank you for joining us. We are working hard to stay on top of these things and keep the wheels turning. So thanks for joining us, everyone.
Crowd is still pretty deep back here, a few hundred at least, a lot of press. I've seen that at least maybe 5 to 10 arrests Hard to tell.
And y'all people, that shit crazy. How are y'all mad that y'all shot that man? All this training and everything y'all go through. How you here? Fuck, I got sons. I got boys. Y'all got kids. Just imagine if somebody accidentally pulled the trigger on your fucking son. How would you feel? I swear to God. Do y'all hear me, G? This shit is hurting me. I got boys. I got sons. I got sons. I got sons. I got sons, G. I got boys, G. I got boys, G. I got babies, G.
I got your phone right here.
I got babies, G. Do y'all hear me? I got babies, G. I got sons, y'all. That shit hurt. That shit hurt me. I don't even know little folks. But rest in peace, him. Dante Wright was his motherfucking name. And I just learned that shit today. I don't know that man, but why do I gotta learn his name? Because y'all murdered him. How y'all don't know the difference between a fucking taser and a gun? Y'all know the difference between a gun and them sticks in y'all hands, right? And these fucking masks on y'all face, right? This shit cool to y'all. This is okay to you guys because y'all don't gotta worry. We gotta worry about this shit, man. We gotta worry about this shit, man. We gotta worry about this shit. Me, my brothers, my sisters, my sons, nigga. I gotta raise my babies to fear y'all. I gotta raise my son to be submissive to the police. I gotta raise my son to you comply, you follow orders, or you die. Ain't that fucked up, G? Ain't that fucked up? Y'all can stand there. Y'all ain't doing nothing but making me mad. That's why I'm in the front line. I don't care. Y'all got babies, and y'all gonna hear that shit. I'll be damned if y'all murder one of my sons, G. I'll be damned if y'all think y'all about to pull a trigger on my son, G. This shit a game to y'all. Are we target practice or something? Nigga, y'all shoot at us for fun? Y'all got all these fucking army people out here? Don't nobody care about that shit. It's all about if you listening to me. I see you fucking looking at me, G. You can turn your head, but you was just hearing me. Nigga, that shit just touched your soul because this whole time I've been talking, you, right here, you've been all in my face. You're feeling me. Y'all feeling that shit. You motherfuckers that can hear me. Y'all can hear that shit.
You're ordered to disperse to the north. Leave the area or you will be arrested.
That shit bogus, G. I got babies out here. But y'all don't care about that. That's why we show y'all that we give a fuck about our people.
This is an unlawful assembly. Shut the fuck up. You disperse to the north.
These are people y'all killing, G. This shit hurt. This shit hurt. This shit fucking hurt, man. This shit hurt, G.
This is an unlawful assembly. People need to disperse to the north and leave the area immediately or you will be arrested.
We will leave if you just say that you fucking understand. We're only out here because one of ours got killed. Stop throwing shit. Stop throwing shit. Stop throwing shit. Y'all look like fucking idiots. Y'all look like idiots.
This is an unlawful assembly. You need to disperse to the north and leave the area. You will be arrested.
You just got hit?
Do it now.
They just said light that car up, something. Maybe if they did something. Police are making quick movements. Again, this is conservation officers from the DNR and state troopers that are on the front lines right now. They've been training together a lot. Shit, since Northern Lights Task Force against the Line 3 protests. Sorry about the camera's still glitching. Having difficulties tracking everything on the screen because it's all upside down, so apologies if we're off a little bit. Damn. There goes that thing, it just shot.
Good afternoon, sir. A few follow-up questions, Dr. Fowler. First of all, you were asked a series of questions about the weight of Mr. Chauvin, correct?
Yes.
And how you obtained that information?
Correct.
And whether you took into consideration the weight of Mr. Chauvin's equipment and body-worn armor and things of that nature?
Correct.
To your knowledge, have you ever been provided with any actual weights of what a duty belt, its accoutrements, its the body armor actually weighs?
No.
Have you ever, to your knowledge, in the materials that you received, did the state of Minnesota ever conduct any such weighing experiments?
None that I saw.
And you were asked those questions relevant, would you agree, relevant to the analysis of positional asphyxia, correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
Now, you would also were asked a series of questions about the bruising, things of that nature that you would see or anticipate seeing in these types of cases, right?
Yes.
Would the amount of weight that a person have, in your opinion, increase or decrease the likelihood of seeing such abrasions, whether it be below the skin or in the muscles?
The more energy that is applied to that particular part of the body, the more likelihood there's going to be an injury. And the heavier the person, the more likelihood there's going to be more energy. So yes, heavier people are more likely to cause injury to an individual.
And in your practice, whether it be as the pathologist, or excuse me, the chief pathologist in Maryland, or through the forensics panel, or any of your other private endeavors, have you ever reviewed cases of positional asphyxia?
Yes, numerous.
And have you seen those types of injuries in other cases?
Objection, Your Honor, is asked and answered in human time.
Overruled.
Yes, I have.
And do you, in those cases, did you have the luxury of comparing it to body-worn cameras and things of that nature?
No. I mean, body-worn cameras are a relatively new source of information for us. For many years, we were restricted to statements.
You were asked a series of questions about what type of testing you performed relevant to the CO2. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You testified that your report was submitted on February 22nd of this year, correct?
Correct.
Did your report that you prepared include your assessment involving the potential for CO2 or carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide in Mr. Floyd?
Yes, it did.
Since February 22nd, have you been provided with any tests, experiments, any information that the state of Minnesota did similar types of testing?
No, I have not been provided with any such information.
But since that time, were you provided with photographs of the bottom of the squad car 320?
Yes, I was.
Has that been since this trial has started?
Yes, it's been within the last couple of days, to the best of my recollection.
You were shown a couple of photographs of Mr. Floyd and a brief blurb
a video blurb while he was in the Cup Foods store and asked to see if there was something in his mouth?
Yes.
And can you say that what that was with any specificity in his mouth at that time?
No.
Can you say that what was in his mouth in Cup Foods was the same object you saw in his mouth in his vehicle when Officer Lane approached him?
No.
Would you agree that at the drugs that were found in Squad Car 320, to your knowledge, contained Mr. Floyd's DNA?
Objection, lady.
Sustain, rephrase.
What do you know about the drugs that were found in the back of Squad 320?
There were white, what looked like tablet remnants, and they were tested for Mr. Floyd's DNA, and I believe they were also tested for his saliva, and they were positive for both.
And those were methamphetamine and or fentanyl?
Yes.
Do you recall, again, whether Mr. Floyd was handcuffed while in the squad car?
Yes, I did not see him have his handcuffs removed at any time until such time as resuscitation started, and that's the period all the way from when the handcuffs were first applied to him outside his own vehicle.
Immediately in the sort of the door frame of the vehicle?
Yes.
Prior to that point, at any point did you see any videotapes of Mr. Floyd going into Squad 320 prior to the police being present?
No. No.
Now, you were asked a series of questions about an affidavit that was prepared by Mr. Ray, or Dr. Ray, I should say, back in 2005. Were you familiar with the intricacies of this particular litigation?
No, I'd never seen that affidavit before, and I have no idea what the litigation was about.
Do you have any idea as to the context of this document?
No.
Now, you were asked about a couple of paragraphs where he apparently does not retract his position on positional asphyxia?
Correct.
And you skipped over, or you were asked to skip over a couple of other paragraphs as well, correct?
Yes.
Would it refresh your recollection to review the affidavit and put his statements within the proper context as you view them?
Yes.
My approach?
Yeah. Thank you.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
What was the context of those statements?
Well, the context is not specifically stated as to why he was making this statement.
Okay. Were there other statements that he made that you found important?
Yes.
What were those?
There was one here which says, a 280-pound man with a large abdominal panniculus, i.e. protuberant belly, is at risk in the face-down position, as well as a person with obstructive pulmonary disease. And there are many shades in between. And so Dr. Donald Ray never retracted his opinion as to obese individuals, but he did at one time or another state that the average person who is muscular and not compromised in any way would have no risk.
And that was in relation to the Chan studies out of San Francisco?
Right. And then if he then goes on to say, not enough is known to say whether or not a method of restraint is free from any potential lethal effects. Basically not enough, no.
There wasn't enough information.
Correct.
You were asked a series of questions about whether you're a pulmonologist or a toxicologist, etc., correct?
Correct.
You're a pathologist, correct?
That is my training and expertise, yes.
Do you treat living patients?
No.
How did the patients that you observe appear to you?
They are deceased.
Are people, you were asked a series of questions about your work with the forensic panel, whether it was a non-profit organization or whether it was some volunteer time. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, I do.
And it was, forensic panel is a business, correct?
Yes.
Fair to say. Would you change your opinion simply by virtue of the fact you are being paid?
No, not at all.
Are people who volunteer their time more trustworthy in your experience?
Objection, Your Honor, for irrelevance.
Sustained.
You were asked a series of questions about a 4-minute time period where applying pressure to the neck, maintaining it there for 4 minutes would cause irreversible brain damage. Remember those?
Yes, that was a very specific question.
Can you expound on that a little bit more? What types of variables might affect that?
Well, basically anything which stops blood getting to the brain for 4 minutes will cause irreversible brain damage. Not just a asphyxial process, but a process where the blood has stopped being pumped to the brain.
So if the heart stops circulating blood, stops processing oxygen to the brain, 4 minutes, irreversible brain damage.
Yes, well, for whatever reason the brain stops getting oxygen, after 4 minutes, the current medical literature considers that there is a high likelihood of irreversible damage to that brain.
Do you recall that question that counsel asked you specifically relevant to the position of Mr. Floyd or Mr. Chauvin's knee?
Yes, he did.
Based upon your review of the video in this case, did you observe Mr. Chauvin's knee obstructing the carotid artery of Mr. Floyd?
That knee did not obstruct either carotid artery. And even if it had obstructed one, the carotid artery on the other side, plus the 2 vertebral arteries, would continue to supply the brain with enough blood for it to function.
You were also asked a series of questions on cross-examination about traumatic manifestations and the frequency with which you may expect them, correct?
Yes.
And I believe in this regard you were shown some language out of a Spitz and Fisher book.
Yes.
When was that Spitz and Fisher book published?
I did not see which edition it was.
Okay.
There have been 5 editions, so I don't know. And the other thing there was the wording was different. It said often no signs of physical, not usually, which was my recollection of the question. And again, I apologize if I misheard the question.
So there are cases where you may have a positional asphyxia case that does not show these traumatic manifestations. Agreed?
Yes, absolutely.
Would you agree likewise that there are cases of positional asphyxiation where you do see these traumatic manifestations?
Yes.
And in your experience with these types of cases, is it common to see bruising, petechia, things of that nature?
It is very common.
Now, you were asked a question about whether or not any of the studies on positional asphyxia and prone restraint ever reviewed a 9-minute and 29-second time period.
Yes, the laboratory studies.
Are you familiar with the cardiopulmonary effects of physical restraint in subjects with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease in the Journal of Clinical Forensic Medicine.
Yes, I think I have. I believe I've read that article.
Would it refresh your recollection to just review it briefly?
Please.
May I approach?
Thank you. Yes, I believe that I have actually seen this particular paper on individuals with chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases.
Does it include
I'm familiar with it.
prone positioning greater than 9 minutes and 29 seconds?
Yes.
You were asked a couple of questions about a deposition testimony you gave in Curtis versus Prince County. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Fair to say that was one small portion of a larger deposition testimony?
Yes, and the reference to burking kind of cut off the second part of burking.
What is burking?
So it's a process where somebody would sit on somebody's chest to restrict chest movements. At the same time, somebody else would be applying another method of asphyxia to them, often suffocation.
And that was in order to basically get cadavers?
Yes, they were they were in the business of obtaining cadavers for medical study, and they wanted people that didn't have any significant injuries. This was a method by which these two individuals figured out they could kill people without leaving any marks on them and then sell the cadavers for medical study.
Gotcha. And I believe, and I don't have, unfortunately, the transcript accessible on the computer, but I believe you referenced multiple officers or something to that effect being on the actual torso, correct?
In that particular case, yes.
You were asked a series of questions. Let me ask you this real quick. You were asked a question about Dr. Baker's finding at autopsy relevant to the stomach contents.
Yes.
To your knowledge, were the stomach contents ever tested or analyzed for any toxicological substances?
I never saw any reporting on the stomach contents being analyzed in a laboratory for any substances that may be present.
And if Dr. Baker testified that his office maintains those samples for other doctors, other people to review, have you been made aware of any tests that were conducted subsequent to Dr. Baker's autopsy on the stomach contents of Mr. Floyd?
I am not aware of any studies that were done on that material.
You were asked again a series of questions about EELV, and there was a question about the oxygen reserves. Do you recall generally?
Yes.
In terms of the oxygen reserves, where in your, based on your experience, is the main oxygen reserve stored?
The main oxygen reserve, in my opinion, is within the blood. It's the dissolved oxygen that's already attached to the hemoglobin. And that will continue to circulate around the body for a period of time. What is in the lungs is part of the exchange process. I would not call that an oxygen reserve.
Now, in terms of this particular case and the measurements of EELV, were you aware of any pulmonologists or respiratory therapists measuring Mr. Floyd's EELV during the course of this incident?
No. There is no evidence that that happened, and obviously it's not on the video, so it did not happen.
And so any measurement would be theoretical?
Yes.
You were asked a question about Mr. Floyd saying that he couldn't breathe, right? Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
And making those statements in the context of being in the prone position, correct?
Correct.
Based on your review, do you recall hearing Mr. Floyd make similar statements prior to being placed in the prone restraint position?
Yes, that's my recollection.
You were asked a question about the anoxic seizure that you observed in the video?
Yes.
And that's recognizable as an anoxic seizure to you, a physician, right?
Yes.
And a seizure generally involves a pretty significant amount of motion or movement.
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Rephrase, sustained.
How would you describe in this particular case what you observed in terms of the anoxic seizure?
A small amount of twitching and or extension of a body part, which is very classical of hypoxic seizures, often commonly described in situations where people have a sudden cardiac event, as well as any other. It's just a situation of the brain not getting enough oxygen, and very different from the grand mal type seizure that you would see in an epileptic, which are much, much more vigorous.
And recognizable to you as a physician or other physicians with comparable experience?
Yes.
To your knowledge, is Mr. Chauvin a physician of 27 years?
No.
You were asked a question about PEA, pulseless electrical activity, right?
Yes.
Can a PEA arrhythmia occur from a cardiac origin?
Yes.
You were asked a second series of questions about EELV measurements in terms of, and again, I understand you're not a pulmonologist, right? Are people variable?
Every one of us as a human being is completely individual and different from the person standing next to us, yes.
You were asked a series of questions about the paraganglioma.
Yes.
And whether you recalled Mr. Floyd ever saying or complaining of a headache.
I recall that question, yes.
Do you recall Mr. Floyd saying that everything hurts?
Yes.
Do you recall him at any time saying his head hurts?
I have a recollection of it, but I cannot put my finger on it. It's just in my memory.
Paraganglioma, if gone unrecognized, can that cause hypertension?
Yes. Specifically if it's one of the forms that does secrete adrenaline.
Continuously or
Both.
both? So you were asked a series of questions about you would agree your agreement that it's important not to mislead the jury, right?
Correct.
And you were shown a couple of still photographs of time from a body-worn camera where it appeared that Mr. Chauvin had his arm around the neck of Mr. Floyd.
In that area, yes.
Based upon your recollection, do you know if that was a moment in time during which Mr. Floyd made those comments?
I don't have an association of that hold with him making a statement, and I recall it being fairly brief, a brief period that the arm was around the neck.
I'd like to show you about a 1-minute portion of Exhibit 43, which is already in evidence. And they publish. Okay. It's a Tao's body camera at 2018-00. I'm going to switch it over to you.
You want King or Tao here?
Tao. (2018-00). That's fine.
Please! Please, mate! Please! No! I can't choke! I can't breathe, Bobby! Please!
Do you hear what Mr. Floyd is saying in that second?
Yes.
Do you see where he's located in the squad car?
He's closest to the sidewalk at that particular stage, yes. On the driver's side of the vehicle.
Do you observe Mr. Chauvin at that point?
No.
You play it again.
No! I can't choke! I can't breathe, Bobby! Please! You're talking.
I'm sorry, if you can just keep it.
Sit down. Fine. My wrist, man. My wrist, man, please. Okay, baby, I'm gonna lay on the ground. I'm gonna lay on the ground. I'm gonna lay on the ground, yo. I'm gonna lay on the ground. I'm going down. I'm going down. I'm going down. I'm not gonna run, man. Right. I know I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
You're talking and you're not breathe. Oxygen to not breathe.
I just had COVID, man. I can't breathe. Okay.
Do you observe that in that instance?
Yes.
Did it appear to you that Mr. Chauvin had a tight, firm grip around Mr. Floyd's neck?
No, actually it looked very loose, and the hand was actually gripping the back of the neck in this sort of spinal column area, with a considerable gap in the front.
Thank you, Doctor. I have no further questions.
Any further, Mr. Blackwell?
Yes, Your Honor.
Dr. Fowler, just for a point of clarification, you've been asked a couple of rounds of questions about the drugs found in Squad 320. To be clear, what we're talking about is one pill, right?
I cannot recall if it's 1 or 2, but it was one of those two numbers, yes.
One partially dissolved pill, right?
I thought it was 2, but I stand corrected, Councillor.
And in the back of Squad 320, you didn't see any footage of Mr. Floyd spitting a pill out, did you?
No, I did not.
Now, you asked questions about the measurements of the EELV, and I think you arrived at the conclusion with Mr. Nelson that there could have been theoretical measurements made. Did you make any theoretical measurements of the EELV as a part of your analysis in this case?
No, I did not.
I want to ask you about, again, the 9 minutes and 29 seconds. The last 9 minutes and 29 seconds of Mr. Floyd's life during the subdual and the restraint. To be sure I understand your testimony. So if we focus just on the period of time when Mr. Floyd is on the ground, the subdual, the restraint, and the neck compression, can you tell us whether it is your opinion as to whether or not Mr. Chauvin's actions played any role in the death of Mr. Floyd during the subdual, restraint, and compression on the ground?
Objection beyond the scope.
Sustained.
Can you tell us whether it's your view that Mr. Floyd's passing after the 9 minutes and 29 seconds was coincidental and unrelated to the subdual and restraint on the ground?
Objection beyond the scope.
Sustained.
No further questions for you.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. You are excused.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Council sidebar.
So that was David Fowler, who is sort of the key witness for the defense. And again, take a look at the trial page on unicornriot.ninja. And you can see we have more links about Fowler's controversies in Maryland.
Okay, members of the jury, just checking on how long the next witness would take. I think it is the best way to do this is to schedule that for tomorrow. So we're going to release you for today. We'll start up between 9:15 and 9:30 tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Don't talk to anyone. Do not have any, don't watch the news. Thank you.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. That was David Fowler's testimony. You've been watching Unicorn Riot. This was day 25 of this legal process. We appreciate your support. Interacting respectfully in the chats. Whether it's been the science angle or use of force policy or legal constraints or all this medical jargon. There's been a lot of different things to try to understand about the whole trial and the details. So I think what we're going to do here is play a little bit more from the Monday live stream, Monday night, and we'll go down fairly shortly. And I'm just going to run down some of these other developments, and then we'll take the stream down. So after running about maybe 15 minutes of the live stream. So just to name one example, the National Guard is definitely still all over the Twin Cities right now. Things are at this, I think at phase 3 of this Operation Safety Net supposed plan. There's been press conferences about Operation Safety Net, which is the main umbrella plan the government's been doing. For example, a friend just mentioned to me with photos that, like on Lyndale Avenue between 55th and 56th in front of the Mount Olivet Nursing Home, there's a whole bunch of National Guard, for example, and they're, armed. Certainly plenty of them along Lake Street. And at one of those press conferences, they talked about the fact they were just going to be putting military people on major corridors. And we've been tweeting from, especially last night, showing that in a large shopping area, which is named after the guy who founded Brooklyn Center, who was apparently a Klan member, that at that shopping center, like there was a huge military buildup, and it got dispersed out into the surrounding area. So there's that. Yeah. So yeah, we do, like I said, we really appreciate your support. It's been great. It's been a lot to deal with, obviously. And with so the Dante Wright case, I'll just again run it down really quick. So there's been unrest, things have been tough in the cities. Dante Wright got killed by Kim Potter on Sunday afternoon, and this case, it happened in Hennepin County in Brooklyn Center, but it's been moved to the Washington County Attorney's Office. Pete Orput, the Washington County Attorney. And Mary Moriarty put up on Twitter earlier today that 48 months is kind of the default time period for this type of charge, a default sentence, of which a third will tend to be paroled. But there's a much higher maximum, but that might mean, potentially about 3 years, like ballpark perhaps. So that was one estimation. Obviously very early, this is still developing, lots could happen there. So, yeah. So Kim Potter was arrested by the BCA. We had that statement earlier today. And so that was the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension did arrest Officer Kim Potter, who also has a huge sort of barricade that's been built around her house farther out in the suburbs. And it seems like none or virtually none of the Brooklyn Center police officers live in Brooklyn Center. They're all from outside the city, which is only 31,000 residents. It's not a huge suburb at all. So that's just something to observe about this. Yeah, it's a small suburb, So I just want to I'll just mention quickly with David Fowler the controversies involved most recently. In 2018, Anton Black was killed in the custody of police in Maryland, and Fowler finalized that autopsy. And in December, he became the defendant in a case with the ACLU of Maryland, basically sort of saying that he had helped get the police off the hook when they killed this young man. And the autopsy took 4 months to come through, and Fowler blamed that death on a sudden cardiac death, and making bipolar a significantly contributing condition, and he said there was no evidence of asphyxia. And so you can imagine the way he would have approached that case about asphyxia probably was similar to this one. But I'll leave it at that. So that just, there's been other reporting about Fowler. Again, we put it up on the trial page. It did seem significant, and it seemed like Dr. Tobin last week was kind of anticipating that this type of scientific argument would come up, and so we've got links to the Maryland story. We got links to the Maryland story in today's updates. Again, check out our Twitter. We really covered the play-by-play. Not everything gets put on the web page, so a lot of the details as we drill through it are just on Twitter. Alright, so I think we'll wind it down there shortly, and then I'll just go to the live stream. Again, we saw, Jerry Blackwell seemed to do a really good job cross-examining this guy Fowler today. It's definitely a big day for that. And so, we'll see what happens next. It sounded like it's not clear how many witnesses the defense has left. Things could wind up even quicker than Friday, potentially. He did talk about tomorrow, so we'll try to be ready early tomorrow, because it seemed like they were wondering about I forget what the word was, but essentially it was like a rebuttal, I think is what they said. So it could be that maybe an expert will come in again to refute what Fowler had said, or the state could try to do that, and that could happen tomorrow. I think that's what they were talking about. So be ready. We might have early morning motions again. Just wanted to mention that. Let's see. That's about all we have right now at the moment. We appreciate you tuning in. You can support our work, let people know what Unicorn Riot's doing. That really does make a huge difference. We're a 501c3 nonprofit media organization. If you can donate at unicornriot.ninja/donate. We're also on Patreon, which is very appreciated. A bunch of people signed up on Patreon. Makes a huge difference. It helps us figure out, in terms of planning, the scale of what we can try to do. So that's really appreciated. If you're a student, if you're doing non-commercial media, then our material is Creative Commons for non-commercial media. So click on the link at the bottom of our webpage, down at the bottom, if you want to learn more about that license. Just want to mention that. So, it really does make a big difference. We've been up on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Thanks again to Alex for spearheading all the tweets today. Much appreciation to Dee and Chris running a lot of the systems. Nico also helping sort of gather things. And again, to pay attention to our social media, you can see links. I'll pull it up. We have, up in the upper right is the links to our various social media and Patreon, and there's also links down in the footer for our channels and our Vimeo channel, which has the edited pieces, as well as YouTube, Instagram, and Patreon. So we do really appreciate your support. We'll just sort of play a little more footage from last night. We'll go down. Keep an eye on our social media in terms of our coverage. If we go live, we'll definitely announce it. Turn on your notifications. We promise we won't spam you with notifications, but if we go live, you can get notifications. So thank you all for joining us. Again, I'm Dan. Have a great night, everyone.
Looks like they're trying to.
You need to leave the area
This
now.
person
You will be
possibly-
arrested. Disperse to the north.
Possibly won't be able to move their car, it looks like. We got the man at the top of the Humvee. So again, the police are clearing everybody just by, they're using their line. They have it reinforced by two SWAT vehicles, one on the left side that's shooting from the top, and then one on the right side in the middle that's shooting from the top. They have different shooters throughout the crowd. Usually where the flashlights are where the shooters are. If you want to know more about their crowd control tactics and some of their trainings, we have a lot of information about that on our website. We have FEMA's Field Force manual. This sort of showcases how they make some of these arrests that we've seen. It's pretty much to the T. They split the line, grab the three officers, move forward, try to grab a person, pull them back into the line, and then arrest them. So we saw numerous times today. We saw numerous de-arrests as well. Again, we're a few hours after curfew here in Brooklyn Center. We got Louis Chan on the front line, Move for Justice. How you doing?
Good.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we got Nico still out here with us.
Most definitely. Looks like they were just going after aesthetics. Looks like they were just going after aesthetics. Thanks, Louis. They missed them though. So the police are trying to again make more arrests in their clearing of this area and calling a curfew and calling this an unlawful assembly. they've cleared all the way. All the cars, even on the street, have been cleared. They're waiting for this parking lot to clear out. It looks like quite a few protesters are clearing out of this parking lot. Again, this is for Dante Wright, 20 years old, killed by police. Looks like they're trying to mess with the press right here. Yeah, you did.
I moved my shit just in time, bro. Just in time.
So it looks like they're checking everybody to make sure they're pressing that.
You are exempt from curfew, but you're not exempt from dispersal orders. At this point, the press must proceed to the 2 gas stations until we get to that location.
Hey, you do
But
realize you told us
to
to stand under 6700 building underneath the light, and we was forced to move from right there, right?
That was the designated place at that point, and the law enforcement mission became moving
after
to.
you told us to go right there, all the press to go to 6700 right under directly underneath the light. We moved right there and was dispersed from right there at the same time.
Okay.
So which one is which order are we supposed to follow?
The dollar store, we had to get past the dollar store, sir, because it was on fire. So we had to move past that. Thank you. We appreciate you. And I've already talked to you tonight, sir.
Yeah.
Yep. So dispersal orders, they apply.
And they say go to the gas stations. Then when we go to the gas stations, it's gonna be moved from the gas station. Yeah. When you go to the gas station, then you'll know how to move.
Once the roadway is open,
how long is it going to take? I'm not trying to be a dick, I swear to God. How long is it going to take?
as soon as we clear this area and fortify it and secure it.
That's you added 3 extra garbage. You just added additives and made it longer.
We need to clear this area.
It's clear, come on, y'all. It's clear. Hey, come on, we're having a private conversation. Damn! What's wrong
So
with
now, here's the deal. You're exempt from the curfew violations, but you're not exempt from the dispersal orders.
And you're exempt to protect us, but y'all keep killing us. You know? Y'all get to pick and choose when y'all want to abide by the laws, but then when it's media, we got to abide by y'all. Do y'all understand that? I'm not mad at you. I'm just literally think about that shit. You're supposed to protect and serve, and y'all literally, by your fucking mistake, you just killed Dante Wright. If I made a mistake, are y'all going to kill me too? If I make a mistake, are y'all going to kill me too? Y'all can make mistakes and kill people, and it's okay. But we can't fucking do shit. Y'all can keep shooting us with rubber bullets. Stop throwing shit.
Literally, because if y'all hit me,
Thank you all for joining. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. We are here live in Brooklyn Center as the police are trying to enforce a curfew at this point. We've seen numerous arrests right now. We hear the training in effect. Here comes a unit of Eden Prairie police officers. Just rolling up fast. No care in the world. Eden Prairie is very southwest of here. We're up in Brooklyn Center, and if you go down, you go to Robbinsdale, and then St. Louis Park, and then Edina, and then Eden Prairie. It's very, very far away, actually. Well, not very, very far, but it's a far suburb, southwest suburb. We're sort of in a northwest suburb. At least it's not like a Egan or something. How you feeling out here?
Good, man. It's just blowing me. Y'all left the comfort of y'all home. Y'all left y'all kids at home to come fight a fight that ain't got shit to do with y'all. I love flashing lights, baby. Woohoo! This is intimidating. Us speaking our mind is intimidating.
I'm not sure why they're making some of these moves that they're making. Here goes a large SWAT truck coming, and quite a few other police forces. St. Louis Park. St. Louis Park SWAT truck. Yeah, sorry, my viewpoint is super sketched out because everything is upside down on my camera, and it's very hard to track how to show you all the opposite way of showing you all what I see. So, trying to do that. Apologies if some of these action shots are out of kilter, two up and two down. So the police have cleared a full block or two off of the police station. Seem like they have enough room to, what do you say, fortify, secure, and then they'll open it back up. That's usually a couple hour situation right there. Yeah.
Where was all this energy when the white motherfuckers was looting the Capitol, though, right? Where was the energy? Where was the energy? Some niggas going to the Capitol. Right.
Again, thank you all for joining. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. We're here live in Brooklyn Center.
White supremacists, y'all child brother. Stop there looking to the eye, right? Cause y'all some pussy.
Right. Feeling stupid. All white men, I don't see no nigga in the crowd, though.
All white people out here. All y'all like that.
Pretty white crew, right?
Oh, State Patrol, that's
exactly.
why. State Patrol's always
right. Right. Y'all some bitches. Fuck you talking about.
Everybody white, that motherfucker.
White as fuck out here. Y'all some real bitches on my mama, y'all some hoes. I'm lit with it. I'm saying, what? 1950. White as fuck. You don't see no niggas. No I wanted to see this energy when that Capitol was getting looted, though. I really wanted to see this energy. We ain't see none of that, though. We really ain't. Y'all took days. Y'all took days for motherfuckers to come out there and take the white people out. But y'all what? Not even 32 hours y'all out here like this. Deep as fuck. Deep as fuck. Because an innocent 20-year-old man with a 2-year-old daughter got shot. Fuck you talking about?
They told her to come here.
Y'all some real fucking bitch.
Shot me for y'all dumb ass.
I'm thinking he finna let me go to my car. He gonna
Y'all be so excited about protesters. Oh, God. Y'all should be ashamed of your fucking badge. You fucking swore to protect the people, and y'all fucking shooting at us.
But they scared of us. That's why. They scared of us. Black skin. They scared of us.
Snatching somebody passed away.
Everybody needs to clear the area.
That's it. Y'all not even gonna let me get to the house. What y'all talking about? Unarmed, scared. But y'all just let the little white girl leave in the car though. That's all I'm saying. But y'all let the little white girl leave though.
I don't give what the fuck y'all finna do. Y'all told us to wait here to go to the fucking car. Okay, we can walk. Fuck it is.
I need to go to my car. I'm not worried about none of this shit no more. Back up! Back up! Back up! Back up!
Dang, and then they got her. And they got the other one. Wow. Why y'all doing that? You know they were moving, yo. Why you do it? Why you do it, Captain? You knew they were moving. That's just very sad how they did those two youth. Yep.
Get back! Now! Get back! Get back! Now! Get back! Press back!
Captain, why are you doing this, Captain? Why are you doing this, Captain? Why are you doing this, Captain?
He didn't even do nothing! No!
Get back!
Fuck you! Fuck all of y'all! Fuck all of y'all!
There's a bunch of reinforcements coming on the side now. Again, apologies for the shots. Yes. My screen started working right. I can see now. Okay. So, pandemonium with these police just arresting everybody that they can. They talk to him for a second and then they snatch him up. Oh, there goes Louis. Louis Tran is now being arrested. Move for Justice News. That was the press. Louis Tran press was just arrested. Move for Justice News. Just arrested now. Louis Tran. Yeah, they just grabbed Louis. Yeah, move for justice, Louis. Dang, they're just roughing up this girl. Dang. My screen started messing up again. I can't see shit. The weather and the elements out here have messed up this camera. Apologies. I'm doing my best. Yeah, they were just smashing her head into the ground. We're good. So again, they just snatched Louis Tran from Move for Justice News. Has just been arrested. Oh, they just let him back. They just let him back. They just let him back.
So first he told me I had to be on the north side, or get down to the gas station, because from down there I said I had to get to my car on that side. He said, get down to the gas station, you'll be fine down there. And then once the dispersal order is done, and then you can head to your car. And then when he got down here, he said, I told you to move. So he grabbed me. He said that you're under arrest. I said, I'm not even from this area. I don't even know. First you told me it was Humboldt and 60 to get on the north side. And then I said, I'm not even from up here. I don't even know where Humboldt. Which street is Humboldt and which is 69th. And all of a sudden he grabbed me and said, you're under arrest. And then he just had a chat with me back there and trying to explain to me. And I said, hey, I don't know where we're at right now, which street is which and which direction's which. And so, and then he said, okay, we're clear now, right? I said, okay, fine, I'll go on the 69th side. And so that's what's going on. So,
okay, thank you, Louis.
Thank you, Louis.
Glad you're safe. The troopers just were moving into that person's car.
Move out the fucking way!
So it looks like they are letting this person go. Here's a captain trying to tell people what to do. There's also a lieutenant out here talking to folks. Lieutenant of State Troopers.
In order to have a camera? If you're claiming to be a member of the press,
Did I say I was claiming to be a member of the press?
Are you a member of the press?
No, fuck you. Go home. Go fucking home. I don't need to be a member of the press to carry a motherfucking camera and make sure that people get safe. You want to say something
Thanks
about
for
it?
being here. We watch a lot of your coverage.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because they like to see what's going on. They like another surveillance.
And you're the captain, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
What was the gas number again?
On R25, on north side of 69.
North side of 69th what?
69th Avenue.
North side of 69th Avenue what?
Brooklyn Center, Minnesota.
Hey,
that's where you need to be. That's
where I'm asking.
Yeah.
Hey, watch out, homie. Let's move off a little bit this way.
So at this point, there's several hundred officers here. I'd say we saw a SWAT team coming in as well.
The crowd has been moved back to 69th. The police are continuing to move forward with their SWAT vehicle on 69th. On Humboldt, going into 69th. This is Clark gas station right here that they were making arrests at. They also made at least one arrest at the gas station across the street. I'm not sure what it's called.
North side of 69th, please. Where's that? Where's it? The north side of this avenue. Yep.
I can't believe they don't want some neighborhood reporter.
Should have swallowed your bitch asses! Each and every one of your mothers should have swallowed your incompetent bitches!
Some of Dante Wright's family is out here.
Prosecute the police! No justice, no peace! Prosecute the police! No justice, no peace! Prosecute the police! No justice, no peace! Prosecute the police! Why you gotta be so stupid? In the middle of a revolution, you gotta
shit. That sucks. Oh yeah, you're good. You're good. Nothing. Ah, a little bit. A little bit. They got the Humvee moving forward now. And they got the state trooper, mobile response team truck. If you ever have operated a camera upside down, I never have, but this is like what I'm dealing with all night. There's been very short moments where I can see normal, but it's very hard to actually operate this camera right now because of the elements or whatever they shot at it, or the rain, most likely the rain has glitched it. We did have protective environments, or protective plastic on the rain, on the camera, but some seem to have seeped. He just told him to block that exit. So they got state troopers. This is a Anoka County Sheriff SWAT. And he's flanked off to that other side. You see Anoka County. They're moving in a state trooper vehicle, special response team, mobile response team vehicle, truck. These two vehicles are sort of almost stuck here. They're gonna have to go through the side way to get out. It's getting really chilly out here actually. The weather's going down. Sort of windy. There's still a few people chanting. It's a lot of press, a few people chanting. There was a lot of arrests that happened today.
Prosecute the police! Prosecute the police! No peace! 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 Prosecute the police! 112! Justice, no peace! Prosecute the police! 112! Justice, no peace! Prosecute the police! 112! It's not curfew! The police! 112! Go home, pig! It's not curfew! You're peaceful! It doesn't hurt you! Go home! Go home, pig! Your kids are gonna fucking hate you! But don't for fuck's sake! Fuck 12! You smell like bacon, pig!
Bullshit from that state trooper captain.
Yeah.
Telling me one thing, and then I did what he wanted, and then he grabbed me, and he was gonna arrest me, but then he decided to let me go.
Yeah. He arrested a lot of people tonight. He was leading a lot of those arrests. Saw him miss a lot of arrests too, actually.
Look at my screen.
Oh, you get your picture. It's upside down. It's been upside down all night.
Oh, that's weird.
I know.
Looks like this is where they're probably going to kettle people in here.
Maybe, yeah, for sure. So the police have spread their line down 69th.
See, that came with SWAT to stand outside.
We doing all this shit with the...
That's what y'all keep me in front of. Stand up.
Stand all night, bitch. I'm outside and I'm awake, bitch. Guess what, bitch?
This is Anoka County as well. So we have two Anoka County SWAT vehicles here. Both of them are Anoka County. Then that one is a state trooper. So this is the Anoka one. You see, they have the top. The person is up there in the top right now. Trying to hide a little bit. There we go. So that person is up there. Here's some state troopers. They're moving themselves. Blue uniforms. Where are you all from? No? Can I look at your side? Can't read it. Brooklyn Park? Brooklyn Park, I think. Brooklyn Park. I think that's a Brooklyn Park SWAT squad or special response team. And here's a state trooper special response vehicle. Special response team. They have more officers all the way down 69th. Is this 69th? Or is this Humboldt? So yeah, 69th. I am not from Brooklyn Center, sorry. So yeah, you see, just right here is Anoka County over there, Anoka County right here, state trooper right here, and other squad cars as well. This looks like another SWAT vehicle. Let's see where this one is from. Trying to see where that SWAT vehicle's from. If you can take your light off, I'll take mine off very shortly. I can't see. So much for transparency. There we go. Nope. Just trying to see where that unit is from. Very hard to tell. Is it state trooper? Yeah, this one. Which one is this one? I can't tell. He won't let me see. Fuck you, man. Jeez. Just play these games. It's like all you're trying to do is look at what vehicle is standing there patrolling the neighborhood, and they don't let you look at the vehicle? Like, come on, man. There we go. We can see it now. No, the glitch. There we go. Brooklyn Park. All right. So that was Brooklyn Park. It's a neighbor of Brooklyn Center. Very close suburb. Both the Brooklyns are next to each other. And here's the Brooklyn Park officers standing right here. Again, this is many hours past curfew now at this point.
Hey, they go Frank Nitty right there too.
Yeah, I saw. Yep.
Y'all got ninja police. These motherfuckers got holes and shit. I ain't seen no ninja police. This nigga look like the boss on Streets of Rage and shit at the end of this thing and shit.
All I know is that it's just so much easier to operate this camera when it's not upside down, and it's not upside down right now. Glorious day for me, or a glorious time at least. Trying to maneuver the camera without the correct ability is very hard. So anyways, this is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Thank you, Chris, and anybody else on the back end helping out. You can probably check out our Twitter feed, _ninja, for more. We also are covering the Chauvin trial, so we have a long Twitter thread from the Chauvin trial proceedings today. And we also were out here last night documenting the police response to the community seeking... Yeah, you're feeling that? Seeking people seeking justice for Dante Wright. Excuse me. So there's a lot of press here still, but a lot more officers at this point. People have still matriculated around this area. I'm not sure of what's happening in the surrounding areas, but the last few times when this types of police repression have occurred, people have taken to the corporate stores and taken goods.
Show the world we ain't got to do shit for y'all to beat us up, for y'all to pepper spray us, for y'all to throw rubber bullets at us. Show the world how y'all really get down. Y'all know how this is. This end with y'all. Y'all got that corner. Y'all got that corner. Y'all got the front. This end with the police coming from the backside over there, killing us head, throwing shit at us, throwing smoke bombs, throwing tear gas while we peacefully assembling, following all y'all rules. Every time y'all ask us to back up, we back up. Look, he got his gun ready. Relax your gun, bro. This ain't a video game. We people. You see how his gun relaxed?
Yeah. In real
You ready to pop something? Why? We ain't even a threat. That's the problem. Y'all always ready to pop something when we ain't even a threat. See him with his gun, look. He chilling with his, chilling with his. Why you so amped up, bro? You ready? Why you so amped up? Relax your gun. Yeah, you, relax your gun, bro. You ain't gotta be mad because I told you. You ain't gotta have an ego. The rest of your crew is relaxed. Relax your gun, bro. We ain't gonna do nothing to you. We just black people peacefully assembling. Finger on the trigger, you ready?
The crowd is growing on that side. I think some just got thrown to the officers. A bunch of people skirted away. Again, the crowd is growing to this spot because they pushed everybody out to this spot, and then they grew a little bit. And yeah, you hear the response. It's a water bottle. Why y'all tripping?
You get hit back in Poland right now. You got all that shit on. Like, it makes no fucking sense, bro. It's a water bottle. Y'all can't handle a fucking water bottle?
Right. Like, you don't see me running at your open face. Starting about people dying.
I got my shit for
Thank you.